Fate never makes an appointment. It may arrive as sudden rain at dawn, breaking apart a day you had carefully planned. It may arrive as a midnight phone call, carrying news that drops you into the dark. It can feel gentle or cold enough to cut through you. Yet whenever fate knocks, it carries the same message. Stop and look at where you are standing now. Maybe you are standing among broken pieces, trying to stitch your life back together. You want to close the wound, fix the plan, and return to the life you thought you were supposed to have. But what if the opening you are trying so hard to seal is also an entrance fate has left for you, on purpose? Most people see good fortune as reward and misfortune as punishment. Yet good fortune is not always won by fighting harder. Sometimes it begins to move only after the struggle has quieted. The chaos you want to escape may be more than disorder. The failure you want to hide may be more than failure. The shadow you keep pushing away may be awakening wearing the clothes of pain. Fate is the language life uses when it is calling you back to yourself. To hear that language, you have to notice the state you are living from. In spiritual language, you could call it frequency. Here, frequency simply means the way your whole being answers life. When you stop running from confusion and begin to pass through it, the gifts hidden inside your shadow begin to wake. They move into your choices, your timing, your relationships, and the way you understand yourself. Right now, fate may be inviting you to open a chapter inside yourself that you have never truly finished reading. Not to become someone else, but to recognize your life from a higher place. Welcome back to Momentum Arc. Your likes, comments, subscriptions, and super thanks help this work reach more people who are ready for real inner change. Richard Rudd is a British writer and spiritual teacher. He studied literature at Oxford, but his most important work came from a very different kind of experience. Before the age of 30, he went through what he later described as a profound inner opening. For 3 days, intuitive, nonverbal insight seemed to move through him. After years of contemplation and integration, he shaped that experience into his best-known work, The Gene Keys, published in 2009. The Gene Keys draws from human design, psychology, and a symbolic language of genetics. It should be heard as a spiritual and contemplative system rather than laboratory science. Its value is that it gives language to a pattern many people recognize. The same wound returns, the same fear returns, the same lesson returns, until we meet it differently. Rudd speaks of 64 gene keys, or 64 inner codes. Each key can be lived at 3 levels. The first is the shadow, where fear and old pain contract the life force. The second is the gift, where that same shadow reveals creative power. The third is the siddhi, the divine state, where the self moves in harmony with something greater. The shadow is not there to shame you. It reveals the part of you that has not yet been understood. When you reject it, the shadow tightens. When you see it clearly, something inside it starts to change. That change is the gift. The weakness you judged may become strength. The fear you tried to outrun may become sensitivity. The wound you hated may become compassion. The siddhi points to the highest expression of a key, a soul coming closer to wholeness. When you live from that higher level of your nature, you no longer need to rush to control fate. The world responds not only to your effort, but also to the quality of your inner state. In simple terms, the frequency you live in calls forth the fate you experience. Fear and lack activate the shadow frequency. Awareness and acceptance open the gift frequency. Luck is often the natural result of a more mature frequency. When you can say, "I am willing to see and accept myself as I am right now," the code of good fortune opens quietly. Fate is often misunderstood as a script that cannot be changed. People imagine that birth, Family, personality, or the fortune written in their chart has already decided everything. Some people sink into helplessness, others fight with everything they have. Yet resistance can take us farther from the life that belongs to us. A person running against the wind only becomes exhausted faster. In the language of the Gene Keys, fate is not an iron law. It is unopened wisdom encoded inside us. We suffer when we take fate as punishment, when it may be trying to remind us of something. The real cage is not fate. It is the fear we carry toward fate. In many Eastern contexts, accepting fate can sound passive, like lowering your head or giving up. But the Gene Keys turns that view around. To accept fate is to come to know fate again. It is learning to move with it. When you accept fate, you enter a sharper awareness. You stop wasting energy fighting what cannot be changed and gather that energy back into the present, where real transformation can happen. The moment you accept your path, the shadow becomes a doorway into your gift. A setback becomes one way the soul calls your attention back. When you can honestly say, "This is my road," life can bring the openings that belong to that road. Acceptance is like standing in heavy rain and no longer running from it. You open your hands and allow the rain to be nourishment too. From that moment, the seed of good fortune has somewhere to take root. We often use the word pursuit when we talk about luck. We pursue good fortune, the breakthrough, the sign that life has finally chosen us. But pursuit carries a hidden belief. It says that what we want is somewhere far away. That belief makes the journey difficult, because true luck does not come running from the outside. It appears as an inner frequency, becoming visible. The farther you place luck in the distance, the longer you keep yourself inside the field of not enough. That waiting can become quiet self-rejection. Without saying it directly, you are telling life, "I am not worthy yet. I am not ready yet." And life can only answer, "Wait a little longer." According to the Gene Keys framework, every person carries a gift frequency. Good fortune begins to show itself when we enter that frequency. The more anxiously you chase success, the more easily you remain in fear, lack, comparison, and pressure. From that state, even a good opportunity can feel threatening. Even progress can feel like something you might lose. Many people believe that changing fate means working harder, thinking more correctly, and making more perfect choices. But the movement of fate often begins with a simpler inner action: relaxing, trusting, and allowing. When you stop forcing and begin to accept who you are now, you stop living as a pursuer. You become available to the gift. You no longer depend on the outside world to prove your worth. Something steadier speaks through the way you stand, breathe, respond, and carry yourself. It tells life, "I am ready now." This is when good fortune can meet you. Richard Rudd describes human potential through 64 gene keys. Each key contains a shadow, a gift, and a city. You could imagine this as a 3-story house of fate. Most of us live for a long time on the first floor. We fight the shadow, blame ourselves for it, or hide from it. Yet only by seeing the shadow and passing through it can we reach the second floor, the gift that was born with us. What we call luck is often the experience of living on the right floor. The universe has not changed its mind about you. Your interpretation of yourself has changed. Many people believe success comes from choosing the right industry, meeting the right person, or catching the right timing. Those things matter, but they are results, not causes. The deeper cause is the transformation of inner frequency. When your inner world is no longer ruled by fear, denial, and resistance, luck no longer feels random. It grows out of each moment in which you choose to align with your real self. So fate is not something to be calculated, it is something to be observed. Your shadows are not your crimes. They are seeds that have not yet flowered. They are waiting to be warmed by understanding and love so they can change into gifts. Accepting fate brings you into alignment with a larger wisdom. Adversity may still hurt, but it no longer has to mean life is against you. It may be the way your soul is being recalibrated. When your inner frequency becomes clear, the path can change with it. The gift opens. The map responds. Fate becomes less like a prison wall and more like a navigation system. To accept fate is not to abandon your power. It is to recognize that your personal plan is not the only intelligence at work. Your task is to sail beside a larger current without losing yourself. Real good fortune is not the result of defeating fate. It begins when you choose to cooperate with it and let life move again. You stop treating life as something that must be conquered before it will bless you. Good fortune comes from alignment, not pleading. Rudd places great importance on contemplation, seeing the frightened self clearly without running from it or pressing it down. Real frequency transformation is not a brief moment of awakening. It is the steady practice of noticing and accepting what arises in ordinary life and tuning your presence through small choices. In the deeper teachings of the Gene Keys, Rudd describes the frequency cascade. When you respond to a shadow from a higher frequency, the choice can begin a chain of positive shifts. Understanding replaces defense. Silence replaces the urge to strike back. This is not a quick technique. It is the strengthening of a soul muscle. Every time life becomes difficult, the same question returns. Will you judge what is happening or respond with awareness? Will you repeat the old frequency or choose from a clearer place? The first step is to see the shadow. Look for the longing and the wound behind it. The second step is to accept this moment. Allow yourself to be unfinished. Allow reality to be imperfect. Acceptance is not defeat. It is the quiet sentence you offer yourself. Even this can be here. The third step is to live the gift through small actions. A patient reply, a clean silence, a cup of tea made with care. The way you choose to respond to life is the way you create your frequency. You no longer let fate decide your state. Your state begins to guide the way fate can unfold. Good fortune becomes the natural extension of the way you are learning to meet life. When you look back at the moments in life that once felt unfair, you may begin to see another pattern. Some of them were not only wounds, they were foreshadowing. You thought fate had hurt you. Later, you may see that life was moving you into a position you could not have chosen with the mind alone. Rudd's work returns again and again to a tender idea. Every shadow is, in some way, asking for love. Every test of fate may be love appearing in a difficult form. It waits for you to stop answering it with fear. It waits for the moment when pain can be turned into light. When you truly accept fate, you begin to see that it was never only punishment. It is a poem written between your soul and the universe. Every line, every break, every turn has been moving you toward a more honest version of yourself. A self that can accept the shadow, transform pain, and live as a clearer light. Good fortune is not an outside gift handed to you at random. It is the prepared self opening the right door at the right time. It appears when you stop asking, "Why me?" and begin to understand, "So this was mine to meet." To accept fate is not to lose. It is to finally understand that fate is not a mountain you must climb from below. In some hidden way, you have been standing on that height all along. What was missing was the view. When you stop and look at where you are now, the obstacles you believed could never be crossed become coordinates guiding you back to your own center. The real light begins to shine when something inside you becomes steady. Then the world is no longer a battlefield to conquer. It becomes a piece of music waiting for you to join it. And you become the person who finally understands what accepting fate truly means. This time, you do not turn away. You answer gently, "Thank you, fate. I am ready."